Before we start our podcast, a lot of you have been listening to Swisspreneur for inspiration on your own entrepreneurial journey. And I want to tell you about a great opportunity to get non-dilutive funding and coaching for your startup. If you have an innovative business idea, consider joining Venture. They're Switzerland's leading startup competition, and every year they award over 500,000 Swiss francs in cash prizes, McKinsey & Company business consulting packages, and an amazing mentorship program. Submit your free application by March 3rd on venture.ch.
If you have an emerging trend or a new category which is growing, more competition actually, or more competitors, help you to grow the segment itself than if you're a lonely soldier, so to say.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Lena and Simon, a very warm welcome to the Swisspreneur podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting us. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, same on my side. Actually being Swiss and being a Swisspreneur the very first time is so cool.
That's a perfect combination, I would say. So you both are co-founders of Air Up, a revolutionary scent-based drinking system. And of course, we're going to talk all about your amazing product and how you actually developed it. But first, I want to talk a bit more about your personal background. Lena, you describe yourself as a creative mind that ended up in the business world. So I wonder, was entrepreneurship far from your radar back in your university days?
Yes, definitely. So I studied product design. And when you study product design, you do not have any business courses. So entrepreneurship was something I did not have on my career plan. I basically did not have a lot of plans at that time, but I definitely didn't think I would ever found a business. And also, talking about my family, so I do not have any entrepreneurs in my family. So yeah, it was far off from my mind.
So it sort of really just happened, and we're going to tackle that story in a minute. Of course, I also wonder with you, Simon, what first drew you to entrepreneurship? Why is that the right career choice for you?
For me, actually, I was during my studies, and I studied business and chemistry, kind of in a combined study. I was pretty much on the consultant or investment banker track. But then during an internship in Tel Aviv, I came into this, and it's really a startup nation there, into this whole scene and met so many different entrepreneurs. And together with a friend back in Tel Aviv, we decided actually it's quite boring to go into consulting. And it's a lot cooler to actually really do what you think of. When we actually started our first company, which was called Vendel back then, which was a startup I had before joining Air Up.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the early days, Lena. And the Air Up idea is actually based on yours and co-founder Tim's bachelor thesis. Could you tell us a bit more about that and explain how you actually worked on the first initial ideas?
Yeah, sure. So Tim and me, we had our bachelor thesis project together. So we had a lot of projects before as a team, and we thought that's a good idea. And we both were super intrigued within the topic. We stumbled across during our bachelor thesis research phase, where we heard a lot of talks about neuroscientific studies, and which was about our sensory perception and how you could maybe in the future manipulate the sensory perception or augment it for a good reason. And we thought that's a super nice starting point for a physical product. We kind of digged into that topic. I mean, it was a huge theme, and the first 1.5 month we just spent in trying to find a product category in which we could combine this thought with the sensory perception with a physical product. And we came to the topic of our modern diet, which is, not just only a huge health threat nowadays to a lot of people and our society, but also it is connected very much to our problem with the environment, because our food consumption leads to a lot of environmental issues as well. So we thought maybe this is a good point to start, and we realized that the perception of taste was the main issue. So our sensory perception is nowadays the same as it was hundreds of years ago, and it leads to that we think good tasting food is good for us, which was back in the days extremely important to survive in your environment. And today it's just, the food industry came across that everything that has a lot of sugars and fats inside is tasting well to people. So we really struggle to discipline ourselves to resist good tasting food. So we thought, if we could, manipulate our sensory perception in a way that we could make something that's actually healthy, very tasteful, then that would be a nice product. And then we, digged into how a taste perception works. We found out that scent has plays a major role in that. We found out that it's a certain way of perceiving or getting that scent into your system that it is able to have this impact on your taste perception. And that's where basically the basic idea was found, where we said, okay, water is the perfect drink for everyone, but not a lot of people drink water. But if you could bring scent into people's mouth at the same time, it will taste super exciting without them having any bad consequences from that.
That sounds almost too good to be true, and also like a very scientific approach that you took there. Can you quickly explain how you solved that and actually execute the scent-based water drinking?
Yes, actually, it's not as... The prototypes looked very plain. So our first prototype was actually a scent diffuser we bought from the internet. We ordered. We put a straw inside the outlet of the scent infuser, so where the steam comes out, and put it into the other end of the straw into our mouth and drank at the same time water. So that was our first prototype to see if it works. And it did work. And then we went from that to buying cheap bottles from Woolworth, because that was the only shop we had access to where we studied in Schwäbisch Gmünd, so a very small town. And we bought a lot of baking aromas from the supermarket. We bought a lot of etheric oils from the esoteric shop in our town. And that was kind of the setup we needed to play around with it and see that it works. And then we went over to 3D printing. The technique in the beginning, we used already silicon to manufacture prototype our mouthpiece. And that's that was we had a functional prototype by the end of the thesis, which took us, 4 weeks from idea to this prototype. But from this prototype to an actual product, the product that we sell today, it was a huge, that was a lot more effort to get to that, because then you need to think about manufacturing, about finance, how expensive are the toolings, how complex can it be, and so on and so forth. So that was a lot longer process.
And even before you made that decision, when was the point when you first realized that this project was not only working, but also truly economically viable?
Yeah, that was not our first thought, as you can imagine. So we had, Simon is laughing.
You should have seen the first business plan. It's so funny talking about, I think, 10,000 bottles in the first year. It's a 1, 2, 3 of business class. It's so cute.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
I mean, we all have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, but really. So Tim and me, we soon found out if we want to carry that project onwards, we really need other skills in our team because we're not the born business people. But that actually was not our thought in the beginning. We did not think about, founding a business or anything like that. It was actually an old friend of mine, Fabian, who came into the picture. He was intrigued by the idea, and he said, "Well, let me work on your prototype in my master thesis, and I'm going to find out if, from a scientific background, because he's a food technologist and a food scientist, if that actually works." And that was basically the starting point. And then he was saying, May, this has far too much potential. Just from a product perspective, it works. You can manufacture it also from a food side of things. Let's apply for a scholarship. And the scholarship was it's a scholarship we have here in Germany. It's for 1 year for 3 people actually. So that's how it's made up. We were 4 in the end, but it still worked out. Where we got a salary for a year and could work on that prototype and bring the idea forward. And that was the first point where we needed a business plan. And we 3 were sure, okay, that's something we are not able to do. So let's get someone in who can do that. And that was Janis, who's an old school friend of mine. And he was the first one saying, that also makes sense from a business perspective because you have the razor blade model, could be interesting to investors as well. But that was something surely we did not think about before. I mean, we thought, okay, it could be an attractive product to consumers, but we did not think about that.
Wow, it's a super impressive and also very motivating story that you just shared with us here. And Simon, then later down the road, you also joined the team. How did you first meet Lena, Tim, and the whole Air Up team?
The crew. So back then, actually, it wasn't called Air Up at all. But I think it was still the name Joyce. And then the name 10 Ace came across, and then Air Up, even though there was a graveyard of thousands of names up until we came to the name of Air Up. But Janis actually was kind of the connecting point as we studied together at the Technical University of Munich. And it was actually quite funny because I was still working in my previous startup, and I got in summer 2018 a call from Janis, who got my number from a befriended entrepreneur out of Munich, and said, "Simon, you know what? I have a really interesting project, but I cannot tell you what it is about, but it will change the world. I have a few questions." And then obviously you're at your phone and you're asking yourself, all right, so, but can you give me a little bit of context so that at least I can make it specific and fit my answer to what you need? Mm-hmm. And then obviously he said, yeah, we're right about to apply for certain patents and therefore it needs to be top secretive. But I have a few questions about production, moldings, so Spritzguss, and in regard of a business plan. And then I tried to give him a little bit of assistance, but then actually we lost our ways again. And then half a year later, I met Janis one more time when they actually started to look for their very first investors. And I could try back then Choice, and honestly I was blown away by that idea. And something which I learned actually throughout my time in Tel Aviv, and why I think that the Israeli startup ecosystem is working hell good, is that they support one another without expecting anything back. And I think this is something which the Western world really can learn from the Middle Eastern Israeli culture. That it's not always, I give you something and in return I expect something, but simply I think making a couple of intros is it doesn't cost you anything. I think I already supported 3 startups in getting their Series A or pre-seed round, but just writing 20 investors, it didn't cost me anything, but it gave a life to a potential company. And from that very moment onwards, when I met them half a year later, I thought this is going to be the game changer in the beverage industry, and I supported them with all my network I had back then. And then unfortunately, half a year later, or not even half a year later, 4 months later, my startup actually, it turned out that it doesn't work out. simply like we had the funding, patents, all of it, but we were 5 euro cents too expensive, and it was in the packaging industry. And on that very same day, Jannis called me and asked if I want to join as a late co-founder. And as I was so confident that this will be the game changer, that I still took a couple of weeks, was again considering after, I think, 2.5 years of a lot of effort, blood, sleepless nights, if I not just should go to, I don't know, Boston Consulting or McKinsey or so, earn a good salary and have a, let's say, a chilled
Also
life.
sleepless nights and
Yeah, but I think the emotional stress is a lot less. But then I said, come on, I'm 27. Why choose the safe route? Let's join this really crazy troop of 4 founders. They couldn't be more diverse. Either it goes bust in half a year or it will fly. And that's basically when I joined AirUp. So through
and maybe
Jannis,
maybe to add
that crew.
Sorry, Simon, go
No,
ahead.
you, Lena. No. I think that's how I met them. But I think you need to start really from that really weird call up to your mind is blown away, to your startup goes bust the same day. Jannis calls you, and while basically your baby just died, he asks you if you not just want to join the next.
That's quite a roller
next
coaster ride.
airplane. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Jannis always refers to hitting on the widow and on the grave of the ex-husband, so to say. But that's So it was a bit well, whatever. But maybe to add here, so the one thing that we were missing back then was truly a salesperson. And as you can maybe already get from how Simon speaks, we were persuaded that Simon is the perfect salesperson for our product. So that was the one missing element we needed for our team in the beginning. And that's, why we were super happy that Simon came on board.
Amazing.
And I think, and this maybe just adding to what Lena just said, I think this is something really which is unique about our app, because I think we're all pretty young. So Fabian, the oldest, is 32 by now, I think. I'm 30, the second oldest. And then
29.
Lena, I cannot tell your age. Okay, how it is, so.
29.
You're still,
Yeah,
you will always stay below 30. Let's say that way around. But that we were always really, really self-aware of what we can do and what we can't do, and that we need to build a team and empower that team to really excellent perfection. And this, from the very first moment, we said we need to get people to this team which are in every topic where we hire them a lot better than we are. And this is something I think we kept as a spirit up until today. I think we have this one sentence: delegate responsibilities, not work, because all other is toxic. Which I think is really one of the foundations of our success up until 2021 and this really crazy year we had.
That's amazing.
Which is finishing.
I just wonder, Simon, before you mentioned that you were so convinced that AirUp is going to change the world. And, now looking back with the success that you have, that's of course easy to say, but back then in that moment, what made you so certain that that's going to be the case? Because I can imagine many people in a similar situation now deciding, should I join another startup? Mine just didn't work out. I could also go and work in consulting, for example. What gave you that confidence that this is the right call, that this is the company that's really going to change the world in that regard?
So honestly, it was the experience. And I think this is, in most cases, the experience needs to be right, especially like in D2C or B2C companies, that when I tried this product, and you can activate and deactivate the taste, which is already, this is, and excuse my French, a mind fuck.
Of course, yeah.
But you drink a sip of water, and then 1 second later you turn on or activate the pot, and then there's taste, but you still only drink water. And just this experience really, and up until, I can tell you, even 3.5 years later, this still fucks my mind. I hope that it's allowed to say this here.
Of course.
And this experience, I think, is the core driving force. And then obviously you have all these rational reasons in your head where you say, well, it's so much more sustainable because you don't bottle water. And I think this is one of the core challenges this world is facing, and it won't change because right now what we're doing is, well, we're over-consuming this world. Then obviously there's a second reason where, at least, well, I studied business. You think of this is so much more efficient than anything out there. So you save money from a rational point of view, like, and obviously we can communicate this a lot better up until today, I would say, and it's healthy. It's the most healthy solution you can have. And then if you have these basic underlying rational reasons, and you have the experience, which is still crazy, you can turn on and off taste, made me really feel extremely confident that this solution will change the world. The only question was, are we the right team to do so?
Mm-hmm. And that's actually super fascinating, Lena. If you think about that, you not only solve one of the biggest problems, but actually two of them, the health and the sustainability challenges that we currently face. If you think about your personal motivation behind that, is one more important to you? So are you more eco or more health conscious, or is it really the combination of the two that is attracting you?
I think what still fascinates me about the product, and this is why I say still, because of course as a product designer working for 5 years on the same product is something that you would normally not love to do because it's not a lot of change. But I think what we love about this product and also brought us together, that it kind of combines responsible consumption, and which is a combination of both of the topics with an emotional, attractive product. And this is something that from a design perspective you would call life-centered design. This is at least a term that came up in the recent years, because what you did before that, when or a couple of years ago, or maybe even today still, is that you only wanted to create a product to solve a consumer need. But what a lot of companies don't do until now is that they also have a look at what kind of consequences does it have on society, but also on the environment. And I think it's truly important. If you ask me from a personal perspective, I think the sustainability problems is the bigger one, because it will have a bigger impact on our lives in the upcoming years. But I think the health problem is so strongly connected to it that, being able to tackle both of the problems, and solving, I think, is a big word, because solving, it does not solve the big problem itself, but it contributes to it hopefully positively. I think that's a big upside.
Absolutely. And in that regard, Simon, if we think about it, right, you are currently also sort of benefiting a bit from the sales perspective by the eco-friendly products, or the eco-friendly hype, so to speak. Do you ever worry that when that hype dies out, that so will air up? Or do you think that you can also, pursue to new heights beyond that current hype about sustainability and eco-friendliness?
I think, as Lena just mentioned, and really it's our vision to make a healthy and sustainable lifestyle the most attractive choice. So let's say, even though I think there's no indicator that sustainability won't be there anymore, or the topic of sustainability in the next 20, 30, whatsoever years. But if that wouldn't be there anymore, I think the health consciousness is still a really, really, really strong fundament to build on. Yeah. But we would stay, in the end, true to our values. And I think we will continue to push for the most healthy as well as the most sustainable lifestyle by creating products and solutions to enable that. So I'm really confident that in a hypothetical scenario that it wouldn't be of importance anymore, but then something would be wrong with the world, I would say, that we still could pursue with this company.
I always love the optimism of salespeople. I think that's contagious.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And now if you also think about it, right, you entered the market in 2019 and that's mind-blowing, you already reached revenues of more than 100 million euros. So can you talk a bit more about how you actually win clients? What's your go-to market strategy in that regard?
I think one important thing here to mention is when we announced our Series B that we were talking of a run rate of 100 million. I think the press picked it up, and obviously it sounds more shiny to say 100 million. We're always, and I think there I'm really Swiss. We don't like to communicate numbers. Obviously, there are a lot of competitors out there, but also in the end, then people just stick to that number. But actually, our mission is a different one than just pushing revenues to the max, right? So in regard of the go-to-market, I think we have a quite unique marketing mix because we see that content creators, people also call them influencers, but I think it's actually a lot more, to be very honest, and we also need to have a different look at them, is a channel which works hell good for us. And at the same time, obviously, like the whole social paid as well as the Google universe, especially YouTube, this is a flywheel, or these three marketing channels really work together well. They're fully scalable for us and actually allow to target a broad audience, which, and this is, I think, the Gen Z and the millennials who are in these channels, which care a lot about actually what we believe in. So a healthy and sustainable lifestyle. And this is basically how we always enter the market, with an extremely brand-driven approach. I think what most startups actually do wrong is that they, and now the marketeer in me talks, is that they optimize for, I don't know, a cost per order or customer acquisition costs. So really at the lower funnel KPIs. And I think we really flipped it around, and we always said we enter the markets by first building the brand. So really aided brand awareness, looking at like what do people feel and how do they resonate to us before we then actually start to ramp up revenues. And it's costly, I can tell you, but that's, I think, the only way how you really can have impact on this world. Because talking to a lot of startups, at a certain point in time, I don't know, it's maybe 10 or 20 million revenues, and yes, we exceeded that. I think that's also public available by a lot. They somehow recognize, oh, actually this really niche target we were targeting via Facebook or Google ads is drying out, and CPOs start rising. And I think you need to balance that right. And if you want to be kind of let's call it a challenger brand, so really challenge what the status quo is, and you need to invest heavily into brand. Also, actually, PR and Lena, I think this is another key success driver of our story. But I think, Lena, you're the expert there, and how this fuels in to our marketing mix.
Maybe you want to add a few sentences here, Lena, from your experience, because I think you're also very present in the media. You're really like sort of the face of AirUp to a certain degree in the public media.
Yeah, that was a decision we consciously took in quite early days, because we realized PR is a good channel for us. Actually, it was the one marketing channel for free, so we kind of had to take this opportunity. So, and we realized it consumes a lot of time. So we said instead of everyone being always present at those events and interviews, we need one person. And in the end, it was a decision that was influenced by a PR agency that said, well, it should be someone from the early days, and then Tim didn't really want to do that, so kind of stick with me. That's why I got this honor to be present. But of course, I'm always presenting the whole efforts of the team, and something actually I was I was not super close to, because communication is not my normal, like, it's not my background. It was not very close to my skills in the beginning, but it has to do a lot with brand, and I was always working on the brand side of things. So the one big project last year was last year was the rebranding. I was working with a team within our company, and from that, also the PR side of things and the corporate communication is a huge contributor to the brand and the brand strategy. So that's fun. That's it's nice because you can see it coming to life, and that is the best part of it, because of course you can have a lot of theories and a lot of ideas, but actually seeing it coming to life and carrying fruits, that's the best part of it. So that's super nice to see.
It's that time of the year again. Swisspreneur is gathering feedback to become better at advancing entrepreneurship in Switzerland. If you'd like to give us your 2 cents, please reply to our user survey. Everyone who replies will get free Swisspreneur socks and stickers to sweeten the deal. Check the show notes on this episode for the survey link. And hey, thank you very much. I also want to pick up 2 things that both of you just mentioned before. The first one is really the heavy investment in your brand. That's the long-term game. That will be probably your unfair advantage, or it already is, because people, they know your brand, they associate with it. But you also need to be able to afford that. So what was the story that you told to investors to actually convince them that this is the right strategy to take?
I actually can't remember. I think actually investors are normally very aware of the fact of branding, and that brand plays a big role within a D2C product. I think the question always is, I think brand is such an abstract word for everyone. Doesn't know, most of people don't know what they would understand underneath the topic of branding. So I think it was rather finding the right balance in between not having a lot of resources on the one side. So we didn't, we weren't able to put we didn't get this agency in who did this huge branding topic for us and then executed all the assets, but it was a kind of internal efforts, like from a strategy perspective. Then we got the right agency into actually being able to execute those ideas, and we were quite smart with the budget we had. So it was. I don't know how much I should go into detail with it, but we kind of built up a stock library with footage, with videos and photos we could put together very quickly and very efficiently, and put text on top of it, being able to do a lot of A/B tests in terms of communication, and still having branded assets. So we did not do this one big campaign, and then from that onwards we were a popular and a relevant brand, but it was really an ongoing effort. And in the beginning there was not a lot of budget involved. Today a little bit more. But yeah, so we had to be clever on that side, and we had a lot of super talented people on board from the beginning onwards for that topic. And we also had luck with the people we got in touch with on an agency side, because they brought a very startup mindset, entrepreneurial mindset in that game.
That's certainly helpful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The second point I wanted to address, maybe for you, Simon, is also, you mentioned that you have competitors. Of course, there are competitors out there. But from my perspective, it also seems that you do have an unfair advantage when it comes to your business model. With the razor and blade model, you sell the starter kit and then you have the recurring revenue, because people need new pots, right? In what way is that an advantage for you to also stay ahead of your competition in the market?
I guess, as you said yourself, well, if you have a lock-in by nature, it obviously supports your business model. The question is it an unfair advantage? Because it's maybe a little more philosophic. What's unfair?
Sure.
Because nobody, and we don't hold back anyone to build also a razor blade business model. But I think especially in the beverage industry, it's quite difficult to come up with such a great idea as Lena and Tim had. So I'm still really lucky that they invented this product and that they got me onto this journey. But something, or how we see it actually, and again, it's really coming back to our vision. It's, I think, yes, there are competitors, but in the end, thinking of Waterdrop or in Switzerland Drops, these are, in the end, they are also aiming for more healthy solutions. And yes, they have a different technology, because it's, in the end, it's still not scent-based, but it's, I would say, taste-based. Mm-hmm. But they aim for a similar impact. So they want to make consumers more sustainable and healthy. And I think this is always something which I think many new entrepreneurs don't get right, that if you have an emerging trend or a new category which is growing, more competition actually, or more competitors help you to grow the segment itself than if you're a lonely soldier, so to say. And this is something where you need to really be aware of. And yes, we're talking to Waterdrop and we're talking to others, and we're actually even exchanging ideas, because it's not about one another, because, well, we have 8 billion persons on this world, right? So it's really about change the way we live today. And this is how we perceive it, rather than let's try to, I don't know, to take them down or so.
I like that approach. That's also probably a bit more a Swiss approach, but a very good one, to not try to smash your competitors, but actually see how you can contribute to the better good altogether. I like that a lot. When it comes to pricing, with the recurring purchases that you do have to make to get your pots, people could also perceive it a bit of as an expensive purchase. Of course, if you weigh out the benefits and you calculate the sum that you invest in your plastic bottles, you probably spend way more money there. But was that ever a challenge for you to market and sell the product, that people would also perceive it as, oh, it's just water, so it's too expensive for me to afford that? Or was that never a real issue for the marketing and sales perspective?
So we get certain consumer feedbacks which say that the pots are, I wouldn't say too expensive, but expensive. Mm-hmm. And we really, and there we still can do a good job. And it's also like maybe a tip to you outside there, that you always need to think in value for price. And there we certainly still can do a better job, because as I said, or told you, and we know that consumers on average, they drink 7-8 liters out of one pot. And it costs you in euros, or maybe we talk in Swiss francs here, it costs you between, let's say, 3 and 4 francs. And if you divide this by 8, you're ending up at 50 Rappen. Sorry for my Swiss German here. And this is something where you need to get the communication at the right point right. So obviously, well, if you do advertising, or if you have certain, like in PR, I think consumers don't think of a price at a first step. But then on a web shop or on the shelf, I think there we still have an area to improve to actually really we give you value. Because in the end, we make water sexy, to be very honest. And we know that a lot of people struggle. Like that's the reason why, like, many big companies out there, I don't know, the whole beverage industry makes hundreds of billions of revenue exist, because, well, we seem to have a difficulty in drinking water. And we changed the narrative to, make it healthy and sustainable. And this is something which is super intriguing, but still, yes, you need to communicate it better. But there's not so much pushback, to be very honest, even though I see a huge area of opportunity in that space.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's the perfect combination of having a really good product from Europe, but also sort of the American marketing and sales aspect from my experience, what you just shared here, the great storytelling, the big vision that you're chasing. I think that's the perfect combination to go for.
Thank you. Yeah. We're trying our best.
Of course. So my next question goes to you, Lena. You now experienced rapid growth with the company. You talked about the early days. You just sort of ended up in the business world more as a coincidence than a master plan behind it. And now with the rapid growth, you also face a lot of internal challenges, because you have to rebuild your communication channels. You have to onboard new employees and also align them so you can still have a good, positive outcome as a company, instead of everybody working on something different. So how do you manage that? Do you also get any outside help to be able to navigate through those challenges? Because that's a big topic to grow with the company, I can imagine.
Yeah, actually, I think that is one of the biggest challenges for startups in the stage we are right now in. Again, we had to make a decision at one point. We realized, okay, we are a young team. We probably have all our talents. We have our strengths. We also have our weaknesses, but we are a good team. But the one thing that we are missing is experience. So even though, I mean, Fabian has worked 2 years maybe before that, none of us had any major work experience before we started with the app. So we said, okay, in order to be able to overcome this growth and to actually also get the structures internally right, we need someone in here right now who has this experience. And then we hired Chris Hout, who is our co-CEO today, who started in 2020. He is also has a story in Switzerland because he founded there once a Swiss marketplace, a startup, grew enormously within a short amount of time, but he also was on a consultancy side, working with a lot of companies that had to face this growth. So for us, that was the perfect match, and he came in and brought a lot of experience to the table. And with his help, we were able to think about the structures ahead. So I think we didn't have to make mistakes in order to realize what we could have done better. But we had someone who said, well, now it's the time that we have to think about this and this and that. And now this is the time where we should introduce, internal Wikipedia page for everyone to share knowledge. So this helped us a lot, but of course it's still a huge challenge for us. Beginning of this year we were 80 people. Now we're over 170 people. So you can imagine how fast the changes within the team are, and how you have to evolve constantly. So that keeps us busy.
And maybe adding to this, I think really that the Chris was a key turning point, and again the self-awareness of what you can do and what you can't do, and also kind of as a tip to the outside world, because I see many startups to save money on HR, to be honest. So it's only a support function. And the very first person we hired was Kim, who was an HR person, because we always said from the get-go that the culture, in the end, like you have your functional goals, you have your North Star, your vision, but in the end, the people and the team, they are the ones who bring all of this alive. And this is a spirit we kept. And I think the very first thing Chris did when he joined us was to establish the concept of HR business partners. And we, I think, are really rich. I think out of the 170 people, we have 5 HR business partners, which support all of us with a lot of experience to really get the organization right and to avoid those typical crises you have when you're 25, 50, 100, now soon to be 200 people, because they proactively support each and one of us founders in getting their team right. And this is something where I would say, and I still say, that this was one of the smartest things to do, because really, I think most things companies face if they have a product market fit are self-made crisis, because they don't manage to get the organization right. They lose themselves, they don't focus, they are either too late in establishing HR systems. I don't know, right now we have, as I said, delegate responsibility does not work. Think before you act. Certain things we simply need to reestablish again and again, focus, and keep it really simple, and then on a continuous base work with the whole team to keep the culture also. And I think this is something many scale-ups, startups, even mature companies don't get right. And Chris and the HR business partner team were really, I think, one of the key success drivers of what we see today.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, I think the major problem is when you in this transition phase from startup to scale up, the one thing that stays the same is the dynamic environment. So you have a lot of work to do. You have a high workload for everyone in the company. That's something we can't not talk about. It's of course it's a lot of efforts included to come to a success like this, what we experience right now. But of course, the structures, it's the individual itself doesn't feel as much impact anymore. It's less flexible as in a startup where we have we've been 30 people beginning in 2019. So it's a whole different team dynamic, and the biggest breaking point that could happen is within the culture, so that the motivation just drops from 100 to 0, and that's what a lot of startups experience at that stage. The second thing and the third thing that could happen is in decreasing pace and a decrease of innovation, the innovation level, and that's three things that we extremely work on. So we have, like, for example, we have an internal feedback platform where we can track how people feel, so they get the opportunity to answer questions. So how do you feel today? I don't know, we have certain segments where they can contribute. So I don't like this at the moment, I don't feel comfortable with this at the moment. And then you can see, even though maybe as a manager or as a team lead they wouldn't tell you this, because sometimes you don't have enough meetings or people don't feel comfortable. You have a really good overview over the mood within the company, which is really helpful. But also, like, from a structural perspective, when it comes to speed and innovation, that's where you can do a lot of mistakes. And that's one of the big challenges for us. But I think we're on a good way. We did not see it anywhere breaking yet. So.
I think what you just mentioned, it's a really good reminder that, once you hit the product market fit and several millions in revenue, it's not so much about the fundraising or the product anymore. Of course, those points are still very important, but really the key factor that you need to manage when growing is hiring. Can you get the best and the right talent for your company? If you can't get that, you will never grow beyond a certain size.
Yep, definitely.
And really, I think the culture aspect, because we have a lot of talks about this, and I was asking myself, why is the culture always that important? And I was talking to Lena, to Chris, to Christian, our USMD, and in the end, it's always coming back to actually, like, the culture aspect, like, by getting the right people, is an unspoken how we solve problems and how we find solutions without talking too much.
Yeah.
Because yes, if you have a complete, diverse team which doesn't work together well, you will spend hundreds of hours in meetings to find the same solution with the right culture. And this is something why we are so obsessed about keeping our culture right.
I'm deeply impressed by your self-awareness that you practice there, and you also almost make it look very easy, the way that you build and scale the company. So I also wonder, by letting go, you mentioned you delegate responsibilities, not work, by letting go and also putting your ego in the backseat by just saying, hey, there's someone else that does a better job than me. Was that ever challenging on a personal level to let go of things and to let other people handle those tasks? Because I could imagine that when you start out doing that on your own, in the beginning you do everything yourself, and to then let certain things go, that can, despite having a low ego and everything, still be quite a challenge on a personal level.
Who do you ask the question to?
To both of you, I would say, because you both experienced that, yeah.
Maybe to start, of course, this is hard. I think giving up control is something that every one of us, please, Simon, interrupt me if I'm saying bullshit here, but I think, of course, everyone maybe on a different level and on different topics, that's a hard thing, because, of course, when you found a company, you're emotionally invested, because otherwise, if you're not emotionally invested, then I don't think you would stay through those hard times in the beginning. You really have to be persuaded, and you really have to see a big vision maybe as well. So for me, speaking about myself, for me it's hard to give up control in the product and brand segment. But and I can, even though of course I'm totally aware of that, I sometimes have the urge to say, oh my God, I really want to work on the product again. We work now on a high strategic level, which I love, to be honest. This is something. So the phase right now for me is a lot better than in the beginning. So I'm better on those strategic topics. But still, sometimes you miss getting your hands onto the product, but that's part of it. I think it's part of the journey, and it's something we have to accept. And so
Yeah, maybe. And talking for myself, I think even like if when we started back in the days, being 5 people, and or then when we actually went to the market, I think we were maybe 13 or so, and maybe you read it that well we were sold out in 8 or 9 weeks, had 2 million revenue, and since ever then I would say it's a constant being overwhelmed and at the same time having all of these challenges which are so interesting for yourself. But I think really for at least for me this aspect of being overwhelmed because it's so much of stuff you need to take care of um, was kind of the point where I always managed to really delegate responsibilities, simply let go. And at least for me, one of the most inspiring things, and that's the reason why I would say since 1.5 years don't have any issues at all anymore, because anyways, it's always too much work to hand over responsibilities, to see how other people you have in your team excel to perfection. And simply, it's for me, it's always an inspiring thing to see because obviously you see the results, you see how they go about it, and it's just inspiring. And you can learn so much from these people again that you create this really positive dynamics. And then, like I would say, simply show that appreciation to those people or your direct managers or even teammates. Like actually, it doesn't really matter, and tell them that it's like it's hell great work they simply just did, and you wouldn't have managed, but you learn a lot from them. And I think this is then really how you create a positive dynamic. And yes, sometimes you see things breaking, but then still, I think if you have an honest, positive environment, you can talk about these things and learn from them as a team. And this is at least why by this being constantly overwhelmed, because it's obviously like, I don't know, growing from 10 to 20 to 100 people, internationalizing, all in a sudden really creating a consistent brand which has a global relevance with local importance, so to say. This is something you never experienced. And then getting those people that inspire you also, I think this is kind of the key, how you can go about it.
And that's
at least, or how I went about it.
Right.
I think it's also it's a very good point, Simon. I think what we also sometimes, or I have to realize myself, like when I'm 29. If I would not have founded Air Up, I would have been in a completely point in my career, right? So what we are able to do actually is crazy. So working on those strategic topics for me is one of the biggest, presence actually within this company. But one of the bigger topics even for me is to work with experts. So people, you learn so much within that time, and you learn from so many impressive people. So you speak to so many people who have drive, who have a vision, and who have made their learnings, and you are able to work with them together. It's super rewarding.
Well, I'm really blown away by everything that you just said. It's so impressive. And even more impressive if you look at the numbers. We already briefly touched upon the 100 million euro run rate as reported by the media in 2 years. 3-digit team size that is also still fastly growing. So Air Up is really on its way up, so to speak. And I just wonder, what have you planned for the future? Where do you want to go? Where will your priorities for next year and beyond be, Simon?
So from a business perspective, and I think it really is about stabilizing what we see in Europe. And I think I mentioned a couple of times now, focus. And obviously I just mentioned Europe. So what we plan for Europe at least is a really focused internationalization. Also something, well, we had success, but then many, I think, founders, companies then get maybe too self-confident, and I think they can conquer the world, everything is possible. And I guess, again, we're really self-aware that it's a really, really hard thing, and we're super lucky that so far, actually, our internationalization went quite well in Europe, that let's say for the next 2 years, we continue focused internationalization. Right now we're in 8 countries. And then really, I think there's this one market from all qualitative and quantitative data points we have, which is across the ocean, the United States, which is, and I think also there many companies burn themselves, which is the core focus for us, and what we really want to get right. And right now we're preparing a mission. I mentioned Christian, our USMD. We're super lucky to find such a great talent, and right now are building up the team in the US. And I think if we manage to properly and good internationalize in Europe, and it's hell complex. Obviously, it's so dense, so many cultures, and I can tell you, it's not about translation. If you think of the
Yeah.
brand, it's transcreation, because really, just the fact like water is perceived so different across all of the countries which are surrounding Switzerland. And also, I don't know, really, what is a rebel innovator, for example? Our brand persona, a rebel is something completely different in Switzerland than in France, Italy, and in the Nordics. This is really like what you have in mind by that. But I think then the big focus is ramping up the US in a proper manner and don't hit the wall by doing it wrong. And really, and I think the core there is, again, it's coming back to the team, is what we notice here in Europe, and we have always like at least one person from the specific country who is leading that market to really get the local relevance and the understanding of that market.
Mm-hmm.
We build a complete US-based team. Don't send over like the Europeans, because I think this is something we learned talking to a lot of companies, made like $1 billion revenue companies or young startups, that get the right people and don't be too European by going to the US. And I think this is from a business side of things, the core focus for us. And from the brand side of things, I would throw the ball back to you, Lena. But I think it's really solidifying, if that is the right word, the brand. But from the brand communication and product vision, I think, Lena, you're the better person to talk to.
Yeah, of course. Maybe to the product vision, we can't be too detailed. But I think what we currently work on is that, of course, our technology still has a huge potential. So I think we only scratched the surface of it, because no one ever has tried that before. So it leaves us a lot of room for, maybe experiencing more to it. But on the long term, what's going to be more important to us is what I said before. So we have our biggest buyer group is the Gen Z. We designed a product maybe from a young generation for the young generation that is confronted with climate change, but also with the topic of health, and to create products that are actually attractive and don't take all the fun out of life, with still being able to combine it with one's values. I think that's the direction we're going to go also in the future. And the sky is the limit. I think there are a lot of topics where we can, develop some crazy and nice products within. So.
That's certainly a very exciting future ahead. And I also wonder, you have investors on board. You are basically growing fast, so you also become a more serious competitor for the existing industry, so to speak. Do you have any exit plans? Do you think or dream about a sale to Coca-Cola or Pepsi, for example?
I think, or
go ahead,
Lena. But yeah, so I think. Also, one of the reasons, to be very honest, why back in the days when I said, this is these four guys, they are so diverse, and either it goes bust in half a year or it will fly, was one of the core motivations which I felt from the get-go, and I really asked each one of the other 4 co-founders is, do you simply want to blow this up and sell it? So is it about becoming rich, or you really want to change something? And up until today, I think we really stayed true to this. That is, I think as soon as you go for the money, you don't act right anymore. You don't think mid and long term. And I think, therefore, I think, well, maybe something crosses our way, but I think if you want to build a company and you want to stay true to your vision, you shouldn't think too much of exits and, I don't know, IPOs or whatsoever. But I think a successful company that stays true to its values is basically the core fundament for whatever comes in the future. And yes, obviously, the game of investors is to invest and sell, but I think they also understand that a successful company is the most important thing to do so. But Lena, I'm also happy to
No, that's
to hear.
completely right what Simon said. I think, you asked me before, have I ever had the ambition to found a company? That's definitely not what I had. And also, I think what brought us together as a team was not the idea of being entrepreneurs, but it was rather the idea to make the idea and the product big. And that's still what's driving us today. So it was never about the company's success. It was rather about, let's make this product a success because it is something we all believe in. And we always told ourselves, let's continue as long as it works. So that was when kind of how we got from one point to the other point to the next point. Always surprised how fast and well it went. I think we've also been incredibly lucky. We also, of course, put a lot of work into it, but we've also been incredibly lucky. So we made some right decisions on the way, which we probably maybe not know about at that point that is the right decision, right? So for us, the long-term success is the most rewarding part of it. So let's see how
That's the right spirit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
How far we still come. So.
So for this very last part of this interview, we prepared some rapid fire questions for you. And I'm just going to ask you one by one, either give you a short selection of different options and you have to make one choice, or I give you a short question you have to answer in one sentence. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. So Lena, first one for you. How many hours of sleep did you get last night?
Actually, I think quite a lot. I have not counted, but I think 7 at least, because I got boosted yesterday, the day before, and I'm still completely, I don't know, I couldn't get out of bed this morning, so.
So the booster is good to get enough sleep then.
Yeah, it was.
Simon, what is something that you always have trouble recycling?
Actually, I shouldn't tell this, but it's the how do you say biomüll? You have the English word for that?
Compost, I think.
The compost. Why so? Because we have such a big trash bin that it's always getting moldy, and that's the reason why I often throw it in the normal trash, which actually I'm 100% aware it's not good, but you don't want to have the mold growing next to your normal trash.
Fair point. Lena, what is your favorite pot flavor? I'm very curious to hear that.
Orange vanilla swirl. That's something that came up quite recently. But fun fact was the first flavor we experimented with when we were having our first prototypes, because we had vanilla and orange flavor from the supermarket as baking rumors. And in the beginning, we couldn't make it work, but now we finally could, and that's super nice, because now I'm sipping orange vanilla all the time.
Perfect. Simon, since you joined AirUp, did you ever drink a regular soft drink again?
And yes, but I think really rare occasions. And it's actually every time I do sports or endurance sports, I don't know, you cycle 200 kilometers and you go into a sugar low. And simply, basically, your body crashes. And then I think it's actually only Red Bull and Coke I then get to get me back on track, because it's still, I don't know, you need to cycle home.
The caffeine and the sugar combination, that keeps you going.
Indeed.
Lena, how do you stay healthy? You know, we heard it's a lot of challenges, a lot of change, a lot of working hours. So how do you stay fit and healthy besides all that workload?
How am I healthy? I don't know. I stay healthy by, I think, having I think at some point I realized, okay, working too much is something that would destroy maybe my health at some point. So my rule is not to work on the weekends. That's one way. And I think, I don't know, having a happy balance, happy mind and body is, I think, the right balance. So I do not only eat, I don't know, vegetables and fruits, but I also eat my croissant in the morning because it makes me happy. So I think it's having the right balance.
Yeah. Hey, Lena, Simon, thank you so much for taking the time. That was a real pleasure talking to you today. And I imagine we could probably do like 3 or 4 other episodes to talk about culture, international expansion, etc. But we'll save that for later. All the best. Lots of success with whatever you're tackling in the future. And it was really a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was really nice. And don't just get us even started. Once we start talking, you won't be able to stop us. So be prepared.
I have no problem with that at all. You have very interesting learnings and lessons to share.
Yeah, also thank you from my side, and have a lovely Christmas holiday.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.